Hi everybody, it's just the light hitting the wall. Yeah, the quality of this video is going to be significantly lower. I'm using my laptop webcam and I have it like cropped and zoomed. Shout out again to Rob Kenobi for teaching me how to do that years after I was using OBS. Rob was like, "Oh, you just like hold Alt." Interesting. The Wheel of Fortune just came out. I'm back at home, but in a different room than I usually was. It's interesting because I guess me and my youngest brother, we kind of switched rooms. Anyway, today is the Cancer new moon. Happy Cancer new moon, everyone. The tower's at the bottom, and the Emperor and the King of Chalices is under that. Interesting. Anyway, what was I saying? Cancer new moon. The quality, I don't even know what the audio is going to sound like. We're running purely off the laptop that I got in maybe 2014, but it's fine. Excuse me. And then I went back to watch the Full Moons of Capricorn video because I was like, I've kind of sort of done this, sort of. And I was just going to try to check it real quick, but apparently, apparently, the video ended maybe like 20 minutes at least before I ended the stream. So I don't know if like when I was live, if the whole thing was live and it just uploaded shorter and weird, like the timestamps were kind of off. I don't know what happened. But I went back to just take a quick look at it and it was gone. So, and it is interesting because so I was shuffling up the deck a little bit before I went live and the High Priestess came out. I was like, haha, cute. Like, also she's associated with Cancer. But yeah, that video, that part of the video, the end of the video was gone. The Cancer season overall and the final cards part. But oh well. Excuse me. Now, this is an interesting trio of cards visually. Because it's like with this King of Chalices, you see the sun on the throne. It's going to be hard to. There we go. Maybe. Can you even see these? It's fine. You see the sun on the throne. And then with the Emperor, you see like the iconography of the sun on the throne of the King of Chalices. With the Emperor, you see the sun and it's like coming really close. And then with the tower, it's almost like the sun is so close that it's beginning to burn things. And the plasma from the sun is causing ionosphere or whatever. It's like these storms that are happening because of the charges. You can see the thunderbolt in the tower. Hey. Oh, you can see some of that. Okay. It's like the sun is getting closer and closer, and then it's just gonna like. But in the wake of that is this Wheel of Fortune, is this changing of things. And this is fixed energy with wings. fixed energy with wings. It feels like a not translocation, but it feels like picking something up, moving it, and then putting. But it's like the whole thing because it's fixed. Interesting. Anyway, we're gonna put these back. That was intriguing. Whew, it has been a few days. I feel like I'm still recovering from the move. Last time you saw me, I think, was the night before I actually started moving stuff. And you could hear the echo. I went back to watch it a little bit, and it was echoey because there was everything was no. That was after. That was the evening of the first day because I remember I was in the chair and I had my the couch was already gone. So yeah, it just got progressively worse. It was 2 grueling days. 8 of chalices and the wheel of fortune at the bottom of the deck, but this time the magician is behind the wheel of fortune and the knight of swords is behind the magician. Now, this 8 of cups is interesting because I was literally going to talk about this. This is Saturn and Pisces, the 8 of cups. And I titled the Saturn retrograde reading layer of golden layer of yellow brick because it's like the yellow brick road, the golden path. But it's like because like that's what Saturn's job is in Pisces. Saturn's job in Pisces are a part of what Saturn can do in Pisces, especially through the 8 of cups, because it came out in this way of leading us to believe that the impossible was possible because it had an energy of almost foreshadowing miracle that proves to us or that inspires us to believe in miracle, and then the belief in the miracle lubricates the pathway for the miracle to be birthed. But it's like, yeah, Saturn and Pisces, 8 of cups, it's like that's one of the roles of Saturn in Pisces. It's to at the same time uh it's like this disillusionment, but it's disillusionment both in the way of like truths being revealed, falsities that we may have wanted to believe for whatever reason was convenient or whatever, but also disillusionment in the way of like things that we think of as impossible, things that we think of as never happening, proving to us that it is actually possible. And then we have the Wheel of Fortune again, this time with the Magician, and Saturn was discerning. The the Two of Wands was under that King of Chalices. I didn't mention it, but now I'm like I should have because that was literally these two on either side of Saturn, on either side of what Saturn is doing overall significator. It was the Two of Wands and the Magician, and now here we see the Magician behind this Wheel of Fortune. And there's this like beam of light that is almost like cutting upwards behind the magician, almost in the way that the iconography of the sun, the actual sun, was behind the King of Chalices and the uh, Emperor. Also, I was listening to, I think, the Charioteer reading. I'm pretty sure it was that one. Um, and there was a card where I mentioned, or I had noticed that in the Magician, there wasn't an as above, it was only so below. And it was with the Five of Pentacles. So it was an energy of like creating and recreating in different ways that same Five of Pentacles energy. But in this Magician, we have the above. And it's this very I guess telepathic, not telepathic, uh psychokinetic, telekinetic, there you go. This almost, because the tools are like levitating, it's almost like this a command that's given to rearrange things. Like the magician is raising this conductor's wand and doing something above, and then the elements below sort of like rearrange themselves in a way that matches or that meets whatever it is that is happening in this above. Interesting. But anyway, but in my own personal life, I don't know. I feel like so many things. I just sent a message to Reem because I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I feel like there are things that are like, there's a thread that I started in a video a long time ago that I never finished. But there are things that I'll hear, or there are things that people will say to me. And sometimes I'm like, I don't get how this applies to me. Like I can tell, like with the palm thing, people, I've gotten so many readings from so many people over the course of the past 4 5 years, mostly 4 years, maybe four. Oh, it's the summer now, so yeah, probably about 5 years. And every now and then, without fail, I feel like it eventually at some point something about like palmistry will come up, and they'll be like, oh, like I'm seeing like palms, like you have a talent for reading palms, and I've never gotten into it. Am I curious? Yes. Would I ever necessarily dive into it and do it? Probably not. But it wasn't until a few months ago that that unfolded for me. And so it was like, yes, it's about the palms, but no, it wasn't palmistry. Um, and in a similar way, there are some things that I feel like I've come across or that's been told to me in a very resonant way, but it didn't like unfold into the context through which it specifically applies to me until like this past week. And now some of the things from the past that I brought up um, in this past month, it's like it's coming back up. It's like, remember this? Yeah, that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, part two, point 3.0 or whatever. The King of Wands. We saw the first king, now we see the second king. This king, I'm eventually going to get a deck dungeon challenge because I love the deck dungeon challenges. Um, the only challenge we would have had before is the challenge of the Eight of Cups and the challenge of the King of Chalices, because the other cards have been majors. So the challenge of the King of Chalices was a test of, what was it? I know we get the Tome of Wisdom. We ask a question. Ask, I think it was 3 yes or no, true or false questions. And if the if the Archmage of Water determines that your questions were particularly thought provoking or whatever, then he awards you a Tome of Wisdom or a Tome of Understanding, something like that. He awards you a Tome of Understanding that increases your wisdom by 2, and you can go beyond the limit of 20. So it's possible to breach wisdom that it's possible to obtain a wisdom that starts to breach like the divine, the intangible, the ethereal in a way beyond what we can already do as your typical human, I guess. And so with that, the challenge of the Eight of Cups would be to, like, there are 8 chalices, and one of them contains a silver key. You don't know until you drink it. If you pour it out, then the key will vanish or whatever. Like you have to consume it in order to all of the liquid to see if it's a key. And if you pick the wrong cup, you take some kind of like damage. It may be cold damage or something like that. I don't remember. But when you drink the right cup, you heal for a certain amount. But it's almost like the wisdom bonus that we would have gotten from a successful conversation with the Archmage of Water would have made us perceptive enough or wise enough to perceive that cup without too much challenge. And then it's the challenge of this Archmage of Fire to basically hold a conversation and be interesting. And then he awards the tome of, it was something that increases your charisma. This one I've only seen once. The only King's challenge that we haven't seen remains the King of Pentacles. Hasn't come out yet. No, that's fine. All things in time. All things in time. No. Speaking of palmistry, that's not what I wanted to open. There was some app thing, and it was like, get your palm read. And I did, because why wouldn't I? I have had my palm read once before, though. At a local store. I think it was during a psychic fair. I was like, why not? It was interesting. All right. I might need to annotate or get the bookmarks on this one. Because I do use this sometimes. The Tower. Uno momento, por favor. Uno momento. Here we go. So, the King of Wands, Archmage of Fire, under the effects of the glibness spell. So, basically, everything that this king says, if you try to validate it magically, it's going to validate, it's going to come across as true, regardless of if it is or not, because he's just that charismatic. Now, that's interesting because Reen's collective, or that wasn't the collective. She just did a live about my lower back is like, this bed is so soft that it's uncomfortable. And I didn't necessarily think, sometimes, I didn't necessarily think that'd be possible, but I guess it is. It just like my lower back, ever since the move, it's still recovering. Anyway, anything that the glibness spell makes basically like anything that someone says appear to be true, even if you try to validate it magically. It's almost, to me, it almost seemed like it was more like if you like your perceptions and intuition and stuff like that will still work, but if you try to validate it or verify it magically, it has an effect on the magics. And so it would come across on the magical lie detector as true, even if it's false. But that doesn't mean that like your reasoning would be affected. They're just like really charismatic. So you would most people would probably believe them anyway. Anyway, so he engages visitors in conversation, and while he does ask questions, he tries to remain the center of attention. Before they depart his room, he offers creatures the benefits of the glibness spell for 10 days. If any creature has dazzled and delighted him during their conversation, the king offers them a tome of leadership and influence. So this was the dazzling and delightedness of something that we read recently. Excuse me. But there's something about this charisma already. There's something about this charisma that links to the mage, the magician. Let's see. There we go. Maybe. How was I doing this? I don't even remember. There's something about that charisma that links to the magician. It's so, and it's the glibness, that magical verification, no matter what they say. Um, and again, Nine of Chalices. The Nine of Chalices was also in that Saturn retrograde reading. And then there's the Page of Wands. The Page of Wands came out with the King of Wands in that same run of deck dungeon challenges. I think with the Page of Wands, it was like show the Page of Wands something new, a new game, something new and interesting. But anyway, it's almost a compulsion. And it's not necessarily giving me that Sagittarius energy, but I feel like I didn't necessarily communicate fully the Sagittarius energy when it was like, when I felt the thing in my throat. It's like there are ways that we go about manifesting. And a lot of that is done, like, yes, there are like the affirmations and there are the things that we, like, you write down to put it out into the world to manifest it. You speak it. But it was like when Sagittarius was speaking thunder, it was like putting it out into the world, but in a way that is, it's almost like whispered. I feel like in this metaphorical whatever, a lot of like the write it down, do your affirmations, do your whatever to put it out into the world. It's like those things are really loud, and it's almost like trying to make the most noise to get the most attention and to have your manifestation awarded. It's like almost like an auction, but the loudest bidder is the winner. But there was something about that Sagittarius energy that like whispered. And because it whispered when everything else was yelling, it caused something or someone or the divine to like really focus in on the whisper. And when it focuses in on the whisper, it drowns out all of the other noise. And I don't know if it creates that channel, but it was something about like the way that Sagittarius was speaking or externalizing this typically deeply internal thing that just like, oh, you speak thunder, boom, crackle, crackle, lightning. I speak thunder in the sky. It's almost like that glibness that the Archmage of Fire offers is this elemental charismatism, elemental charisma, where it's like someone just becomes really compelling to the forces of life. And it's like that's what motivates that magician to just be like, I'm gonna do this up here, and then everything will work itself out in the bottom. What does that mean? Oh, look, there's the Emperor again. I'm not sure. So anyway. All right. Okay. Cancer, new moon. That was a lot of like Mars energy. What's in fire right now? I actually have my iPad. Oh, let's see if I can reach it. And this bed is so soft that like it like everything moves. I feel like I'm too heavy for as soft as this bed is. But my mom loves it. I will be in transit again. Excuse me, on Monday. I'll probably go. I don't know. I was going to say I'll probably go live because I'll have the mornings to myself, basically, if I'm not asleep. But I might not. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I've said before, I only really started using this channel because there are things that I felt Barrett mentioning that weren't being said, perspectives that maybe perspective that should maybe be not necessarily followed, but just like made aware of to be presented with more perspectives and more information to be able to make choices and decisions and to be able to discern and intuit in um, degrees that weren't necessarily, I didn't feel were necessarily being like highlighted or illuminated because of the honestly, it seemed overwhelming consensus about whatever. But again, like now, it's like I don't. I feel like here lately, this past week has been kind of wild. In a not necessarily. I feel like in this past week, I've been getting understanding, I guess maybe about. I'll say the nature of who I am and what it is that I desire and other things. And I've also realized that there are so many paths that are not mine. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There are so many paths that are not mine that I don't, that like I'm not qualified to speak to, that I don't necessarily care to speak to because they're not mine. And it's almost like it's because those paths are not mine and because I am who I am, how I am, how I would navigate a certain path would be completely different. And it's not that I can't put myself in someone else's shoes or whatever, but like there are people walking, like there are people on those paths to like do that. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, I mean, I prefer to like do something super like exploratory and just like, wow, oh my gosh, what does this mean? I've also realized I felt this before, but it comes and goes, especially as things happen. But I think I'm kind of a dynamic reader. Like I read and I attune to movements and energy. And so I feel like sometimes, like it's almost like it's not until something, things begin to shift and move that, especially, I can see a lot of the like resonance. But while things are stagnant, like nothing's happening. But I think, I believe, I would hope also when I read, like I communicate the movement around that energy, of that energy, and with that energy. So it's like if I'm painting a scenario or if I'm painting a picture, and if I'm painting you a scene, or I'm painting a scenario, I'm painting a picture. There's the foreground, the background, the characters, everything else, and then like the action. Um, Part of that resonance is the foreground, the background, the scene, the setting, the time, all of that. It's more than just the action. And I think sometimes, as people in general, when we hear or when we watch something that has an action that we would like, we kind of sort of claim it or tune into that. But, or just like certain key parts of whatever. But without tuning into the whole thing, it makes it easier for us to pick up on things that may not necessarily resonate for us particularly. And then at the same time, too, general readings take what resonates. Anyway, I think I'm a dynamic reader primarily. Like I'm also capable of other things, but like for me, reading my journey buddy and like a few other people, especially in a few different scenarios, but especially my journey buddy because she's such a dynamic force because she's like always moving. She's an Aries, and I love her. Um, but it's helped. Like, and I'll tell her all the time, like, reading for her has made me such a better reader because it helps me tune into that dynamism. And I feel like over the years, it's helped make me more and more and more aware of like subtleties and subtle influences and little things that, depending on the right circumstances or situations, could become bigger, or like these things that eventually come to the forefront, or these threads, these like almost, I don't know anything about music. Um, but it's almost like if there's a piece of music and you have these different sections playing these different things, there's something in the background that harmonizes it, like all of them, that creates a cohesion between these different parts of the orchestra, symphony, band, whatever. And it's almost like sometimes there's this like harmonizing whatever that remains in the back. You never necessarily hear it too loudly. It's never necessarily featured, but without it, everything would lose its context. It'd just be like it plopped down from a coconut tree. So I had to, I'm sorry. Uh, but yeah, without that harmonizing whatever, everything would lose its context. And when I don't know, it's fine. Anyway, I've just been in this place of like, that's not my path. That's not my path. This isn't for me. I mean, I watch not a lot of readings. I watch a fair amount of readings. Not all of them necessarily always resonate to me for me. Also, because I want something I feel like very different than what a lot of people who watch readings want. Like, I want to be a muggle. I go through my phases, but ultimately, like, I want to be a muggle. I don't necessarily want, I want to be like happy and fulfilled in every area of my life, of course, but I don't know. And so it's just like, well, what do I have to add? What do I have to say if everything's being said? Like my North Node Sagittarius is basically going back to sleep, is what I'm trying to say. Um, and it may be time to let it. I don't know. Anyway. Oh, that was way too many cards. So I'm like, yeah, like I could go live because I'll have the time in the mornings where I'm not doing anything else. But also at the same time, I'm like, hmm. But like I said, I do love like exploration, exploratory, whatever. Maybe we'll do more of that. So we have 7 cards that just fell out. We got Justice. If you can see it. There we go. We got Justice. We have the 3 of Wands. We have the Hanged Man, which is another 3. The energy of the Tower. There was an energy earlier that reminded me of the Hanged Man into Death and the In Between Tarot. I just remembered it. After the Hangman is the 2 of Cups, the Moon, the 6 of Wands, and the Fool. Oh my gosh, gorgeous energy. Beautiful, beautiful. So, so beautiful. So, in between Justice and the Fool, We have the Three of Wands, the Hanged Man, the Two of Cups, the Moon, and the Six of Wands. This is an energy. It's like if we were pursuing something and we keep hitting roadblocks, we keep facing challenges, maybe similar, maybe the same, maybe different, doesn't really matter in the metaphor of this. My brain operates in metaphor. Um, it's like there's something that, because it's the Three of Wands, and I'm going to try to just talk about it and also stop doing this because then I'll forget. I'll go on so many tangents and my brain just. We're not brand new to something. This isn't a fresh initiation into something. This is something that we've been working on for at least a minute. But it's like we keep hitting a wall or something doesn't fully land, something doesn't fully stick. And it feels like whenever we hit a wall or an impasse or whenever we're forced to pause, it's for a reason. And when we can see that reason, when we heal it, integrate it, learn from it, do whatever, when we incorporate whatever is trying to be shown to us in those moments of pause, it's like we get this greater, grander understanding of something. We can see something in its totality. Or it's like we get an understanding of something that's so deep that we don't even have to see it. It's like if we become so familiar with it, or so, yeah, familiar, but familiar in like a knowing way, not familiar in a way of like comfortability. That it's like if it were to walk up behind us and be like, cover our eyes and be like, guess who? Like we would be able to name it. Like if it's pitch dark and it's across the room, we would be able to see it. And it feels like that would be like there's some kind of success in that. Some kind of success in being able to see and name a roadblock. But it feels like this is a gap in, to say it's a gap in our understanding would be almost an understatement. Um, it feels like there are things that we don't know. And we try to feel our way through things. We try to brute force our way through things. We try to manifest our way through things. It's almost like sometimes we try to use what we know of the laws of spirit against spirit to, again, try to brute force our way into something or to take something with force, to almost, you know, go into a space and be like, this is mine now. And I don't, well, I would say I don't think that's necessarily the intention, but I think also sometimes too, we don't fall out of coconut trees. And sometimes we don't see things as they are because they have been what they have been. And what's almost weird about this energy in particular is it's almost like it tries. I just watched Rob's most recent, the sixth, I think, past life regression. And it's almost like this is an energy, unlike an energy that's like the Keeper of Karnak or my Ivory Shield, that's the STFU, BTFU, mind your business queen. Like this is an energy that like wants to be taken, but it's so misunderstood or it's so hard to grasp that it's like it tries to communicate how to utilize it, how to tap into it, but in a language, like with a language barrier. And so it's like we go into it, we try to do whatever. Maybe we experience limited success. Maybe limited success in this area is wildly successful in the 3D. But as far as like getting to know this, it feels like we're not overall generally doing a good job at getting to know it. But it instructs us. It's like the roadblocks, the barriers are because of misusing something. It's like we're trying to do something with something that it can't do. And so it's like it does not compute. And then it's like in this subtle, almost intuitive way, it tries to instruct us on like how to move forward and navigate it. Ultimately, we figure whatever out. We successfully get comfortable or get to know whatever's trying to get to be known. And then, like, it's this full energy. And it feels like it's the full because we were so off about what this is or about how to use it or about what it does. I was also thinking again yesterday about it was the same reading, the Saturn retrograde reading, and about the ebony shield, the divine temptress. I was just scrolling reels on Instagram. Oh, look, and then there's the Five of Pentacles and Strength. I was scrolling reels on Instagram and I found this reel and I was like, oh, that's like the divine temptress. It's the mother that's like, I'll give you all this money if you were to leave my son. And eventually the person ends up leaving because it's like they, not to say that they were in it for the money, but the mother realized it's better for her to be out of money. It's better for her to lose whatever tangibly, physically. There's the magician again as I'm trying to put these cards together. It's better for her to do that than to let someone that doesn't have the best intentions for and with her son to be with her son. Um, and for the one that doesn't take the money or the house or the car or whatever, like she will know like that's the one that her son loves, that also like that's how she'll know that somebody really loves her son, and then that's when she would give her blessing. Kinda. Anyways, we don't have tangent upon tangent upon tangent. But anyway, I was like headed to Menards and it just popped into my mind the whole like there's someone who takes a path further and they get something that someone else who didn't take that didn't think you can get out of it. It's like I didn't think you could get abundance. I thought you could only get money. I would have gotten abundance if I had known. But the point was, it came out under the energy of the wish granted. We're not going to get anything from something that we're not asking for or that we don't want. So, and I talked about it. I feel like I mentioned it in the reading. It's like, it doesn't matter because it's not something that somebody would have asked for anyway. And I don't know why. Maybe it's like going into the unexplored. I guess the moon could also be the unexplored part of that energy. And maybe it's mostly unexplored because, again, it feels like it may be possible to get limited success, but that limited success translates to a lot more in the physical with a little bit of spiritual knowledge and information, type energy. Is that the hangman again? It is. Oh, but this time it's upright. I don't know why I thought it was in reverse for a second. And I guess, yeah, it's like Odin hanging from the world tree. He hanged for 9 days, and it doesn't feel like he got the complete knowledge of the runes. Odin learned enough to do. It's like he gained enough to hopefully circumvent Ragnarok. And at the end of the day, like Ragnarok still happened. It's again, it's like you're not gonna get anything besides what you're asking for. You're not gonna see anything besides what you're looking for. But there's something about that. I almost want to say singular intent. There's something about the intention of seeking or finding that prevents us from seeing something in its totality. And it's like that's why it keeps like fizzling out. It's almost like it seeks out advanced applications, or not even advanced applications, honestly. Like it seeks out applications without gaining a solid knowledge of its foundations. But foundation in like the totality of its foundation, not foundation in the things that we could see as related to the thing that we want. And the nine of chalices again at the bottom of the deck. And then there's the two of wands that I almost mentioned earlier. That was the two of wands on the other side. So both of these cards were in that Saturn retrograde. Anyway, Saturn is retrograding Pisces, and this Cancer, I feel like we're not far enough into Cancer season in order for this new moon to trine Saturn super tight. Let's see. So, Sun, Moon, Venus, and Cancer. Ooh, Mercury's about to. I think Mercury is going to retrograde. Is it Virgo back into Leo? Mercury's getting a little far from the sun, so you know retrograde is going to come. Um, so that's at 14 degrees. It may be a loose. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. It's like 5 degrees. So it's that aspect is there. The aspect is aspecting. So Saturn retrograde is trining this new moon Cancer. Yeah, 5 degree orb, I'd say, you know. Cool. Maybe that's why all this is Saturnian. Excuse me, Saturnian energy is coming up. Is anything in Sagittarius though? That's what I want to know. Icarus isn't Sagittarius? Icarus is retrograding Sagittarius right now. So I don't super pay attention to astrology, especially as much as I used to. But when I first got the Time Nomad app and unlocked, paid for Icarus, it was like $5. Um, it would float between Aquarius and Pisces. And then I think at one point it may have crossed over into Aries, but it's all the way back in Sagittarius, retrograding. I feel like that's significant. Not significant. Well, because there is this like Sagittarian energy. What if the story of Icarus within the context of this is like that magician? Because Sagittarius was whispering when everyone else is yelling, and whoever's listening is focusing on the whispering and drowning out. So it almost becomes counterintuitive because you would think, like, oh, the loudest person is the one that's going to be heard. And so, like, I want to be louder. I got to be louder. Got to be so loud. But when something or someone whispers, it's like it introduces this a noise filter. So anything too loud is going to be ignored. It's like not necessarily. It's like when you're in a live chat and there's like a lot of people and it's or even a few people. When it's like when you're in a live chat and the chat is moving and people start to type in all caps to get someone's attention. More often than not, if I see all caps personally, maybe more likely to ignore it because I'm just like, I don't know. It's not that it's trying to, it's just like, it feels even more distracting. And I'm like, Queen of Coins and Justice. We saw the Queen of Coins recently. I don't remember specifically the context. I'm sure if I tried to, like, I'm starting to remember, but it's fine. I just want to get into this challenge. Is all of this about new moon Cancer? Maybe. Maybe it's about interesting. Well, Saturn was the aspect of the divine discerning the Magi. There was also an energy. I thought about this reading, like earlier in this one, when the Emperor came out, but it wasn't the Emperor spread; it was the Empress spread. The one where it was the King of Cups in reverse and Justice in reverse. Like everything in the foundation was in reverse, and in the last three cards, it was that energy of someone who sits in prayer, someone who sits in meditation, not because they need something, not because they want something, but in a space of conversation. Again, to hang from the world tree for more than just a way to get around Ragnarok or a way to grab power that other people don't have to do whatever weird Odin stuff. Um, and then it was like, Ragnarok was kind of a consequence of sorts, of a lot of sorts. And maybe that's a thing in and of itself. Trying to do so much to circumvent the effect of everything that we cause, the consequences of our free will actions, um, rather than just like owning up to it. And that makes me think of, I think, Zadkiel, Angel of Mercy. And it's almost like if we just own up to it, it feels like it would be a lot less than like continuing to pad the file. Anyway, um, so many tangents. There was a energy of someone getting to know the divine, and that's what the justice to the fool was. It's about getting to know the divine, getting to know spirit for more than just the money, the car, the house, the fame, the spouse, the partner, the whatever. But again, that was the energy of like, there was some there was something that was being communicated in terms of like the what we do, why we feel called to do it, rather than like what we receive or what we get for it. Because we'll be provided for. Things will work out. Um, but if we focus on the fame or the money or whatever else, it can become, again, it's like easier to miss the important. Not, it's not more or less important. I mean, it kind of is, but it isn't. It can just become easier to be influenced, I guess, by what creates, what generates, what are people going to be attracted to. Not that we don't need those things, excuse me, and not that there isn't a benefit to those. Because, like, just like math class, in the beginning, you learn that you can't take away bigger numbers from smaller numbers because you're building out the foundation, because it's your introduction to mathematics and arithmetic. Because when you don't have an understanding of something, throwing you into the abyss of it isn't necessarily helpful. Sometimes we learn to tread before we learn to swim, before we learn to dive, before we learn to Scorpio and just stay down there, or Sagittarius and just lock ourselves in that tower. Sage it out, or I guess Virgo and Hermit. I don't know. There's the Magician again. This time with the Hermit at the bottom of the deck. This is Gemini Mercury. This is Mercury Virgo. See, and it's that inner light that shines out. Cool, love it. Page of Chalices is behind the Hermit. Sometimes it's helpful. And so I wouldn't necessarily speak on it in a certain type of way too much. But there comes a point in time where if we want more, if we want to do more, if we want to do differently, sometimes we have to go beyond the surface. It's like we can't, if we want to do like advanced theory applications, it sometimes requires more than a basic fundamental or elementary understanding. And elementary, both in the way of like elementary school, but elementary also in the way of like the elements, the things that build something up. If you want like advanced theoretical, especially if you're like going into the theoretical, it's like sometimes you need an understanding of like what makes up the elements themselves. And that's when you have to go even deeper. So we can we can put more stress and strain on something that it's able to give us sometimes. Anyway, all right. An hour in. Cancer, new moon. Oh, so with this Cancer energy, it's interesting because it feels like we, in general, it feels like we consider ourselves and our comfortabilities a lot, but there's also an aspect of the other side, something or someone else also being comfortable, because the sun and the moon are meeting in Cancer. And so it's not just about us. Anyway, that's why a little bit of respect goes a long way. All right, there we go. New moon Cancer. Oh gosh. Hey, I said Gemini. Now we have Gemini. What is Mercury is in Leo? Probably about to retrograde because it's getting too far from the sun. Mercury is one of the planets that retrogrades the most often. Mercury is the planet that retrogrades the most often because of its proximity to the sun, especially relative to us. It is the planet that's closest to the sun in our solar system. And so, because of that, from an Earth viewpoint, Mercury can only get a sign before or a sign after, a astrological sign before or an astrological sign after the sun. Now, if we were to go farther back from a Jupiter point of view, how many planets have to conjunct the sun? From Pluto, probably, I don't know anything about astronomy, but from Pluto, I feel strangely confident in a way that I could be entirely wrong about saying most of the solar system would have to exactly conjunct the sun because it's so far away. It can't discern those distances. Anyway, back to Mercury. Because of our position sitting at Earth, Mercury, with its proximity to the sun, it has this tight orbit. But Mercury being the planet of communication makes sense. And the sun being the sun makes sense because how can we perceive of something enough to communicate? Well, the sun being the illumination that it is, the sun being the things that we can see. If we can't see it, we can't communicate it. So, of course, Mercury, with all that it's associated with, maybe except for trade or commerce, but I guess there's at least a decent amount that happens up front. Um, but more so like communication, the closeness in the vicinity of Gemini, um, it makes sense that it has to be that close to the sun, especially from our perspective. But it feels like because of that, there are many things that sort of go unknown. But also, we're humans living on Earth. We only know what we know. And our experiences, even if two people have the exact same experience, they can be affected in different ways or perceive it in different ways. They can notice different things. So the seven of coins and the eight of coins. This is first decan of Virgo, third decan of Taurus. The third decan of Taurus is Capricorn. Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. The deck dungeon challenges associated with the coins is like money. Pluto actually had I think it was the eight of coins. I think I could be wrong. Pluto had a coin deck dungeon challenge though. Pluto isn't in Capricorn yet. Pluto's 1 degree of Aquarius. Aquarius is in Capricorn. Let's see. Are we going to get a number? Sure, let's get a number for the number of coins. I'm going to have to cheat a little bit because I can't ask Google to roll a percentile dice. Unfortunately, but 1d10 times the number of the card drawn. So first it was the 7. Hey, Google, roll 2d10s. Roll 2d10s. Okay. I want you to hear it. Hey, Kirsty, how you doing? Hey, Google. Hey, Google. Roll 2d10s.
I found these results.
Oh my God, you literally just did it. Roll a d10 twice. There you go.
You got 10 and 3. That makes 13.
10 and 3. So that's 3. Because, wait, is that 3? Because the 10 is 0. Oof. So with the 7 of coins, we get 21 coins out of a possible 300. But 21 is a 3. Why does that matter? Because of the world? Because it's the opposite of the 12, that's the hangman. Cool. Roll a d10 twice.
You rolled 1 and 9 for a total of 10.
19. These are low. It's fine. Maybe it'll be like a blessing rather than like a miracle. It'll be some coins, not all the coins. 19 times 8, that is 8 less than 160, which is what, 152? Hey, Google, what is 19 times 8?
19 times 8 is 152.
Hey, 152, let's go. So we get 21 coins, and then we get 152 coins. Hey, Google, what is 152 plus 21?
152 plus 21 is 173.
Okay. 152 is also an 8. 1 plus 5 plus 2 is an 8, and it's the 8 of coins. Interesting. Okay. So we get In total, we get 21 coins, and then we get 152 coins. Let's do 152 divided by 21. 152 divided by 21 is 7.23. So there's a clean sevenfold increase on this. Now, also, speaking of the Saturn retrograde reading and Saturn trining this moon, retrograde Saturn trining this moon, we did see this as the journeyman. The journeyman was the one that was undergoing that initiation. There's almost an energy here of what we do with something. Because it's like the Seven of Pentacles is growing it, and then the Eight of Pentacles is asking, what are we going to do with it almost? There was also, maybe this is on the other side. I think with the Saturn retrograde in particular, was focusing more on us becoming more and more and more familiar. Familiar again in the way of knowing. More so than the way of comfortability, but also becoming more and more comfortable. So, in many meanings of the word, us becoming more and more and more familiar with something that we have a knowing of, but may not have necessarily found evidence of. And again, that's Saturn's role as the Eight of Cups, to be the road that we traverse as we go from everything that we don't know, as we go from everything that we know, as we leave our comfort behind and continue on with no necessarily real promise or guarantee that things are going to work out. But the Eight of Cups leads to the Nine, leads to the 10. We can't find the 9 where we are. That's why the 8 is there. Jupiter is in Gemini still. Jupiter is in Gemini 9 degrees, so it's not squared Saturn. That's a loose, or it's 10 degrees, but Saturn is retrograding. Jupiter retrogrades in October. When Jupiter retrogrades, I love time on that. Sorry, I do. I love it. When Jupiter retrogrades, it's going to be at 21 degrees, Gemini. Saturn, so they're going to exactly square between now and October. Which is an interesting energy. But that's Jupiter and Gemini. But from the Saturn perspective, it's interesting because, again, it's like Saturn is doing this work. In whatever way it's doing it, it may not necessarily always be comfortable because it's Saturn. Also, it's the Eight of Cups, so it's probably not going to be not the most comfortable. Saturn is doing this work to get us to see something as possible. And it feels like for it to then square Jupiter and Gemini is that moment where we are offered. Oh, my youngest brother is awake. Oh, gosh. You may hear anything. I should probably end this because it's fine. Um, I don't personally, I don't personally condone anything that might come out of his mouth, because he is that type of person. Um, anyway, um, man, what was I saying? Yeah, so it's almost like Saturn is doing all of this work in Pisces to get us to see something as possible, to get us out of our comfort zone and closer and closer and closer to the realm in which our desires live, our truest desires, our true word desires, the things that we don't even know that we love yet. Um, but we have to leave so much of what we know to get there, right? You think that something is your favorite thing, but that's because you haven't had this other thing. But the square with Jupiter and Gemini, it's almost like, again, it was the energy of the star that was expanding. It was like the thing coming to us. It's this moment where it's offered, and it's like, do we take it? Like that's the communal, that close by ness of Gemini. It's like when we're welcomed into the fold, what do we do? And I think a lot of time, I don't know, to be human and to be human in that moment is interesting. Because I feel like in a lot of what if scenarios, I think we go like, oh, if I had this opportunity or that opportunity, or if this would have happened or if that would happen, like that would be my big break, and then I would be able to do whatever. But then when we're actually confronted with things, sometimes there's this battle with the self that may or may not take place. That can make it a little more difficult. Now the lovers is here. Here, that's like it came out face up first. And I was like, oh, there's the Gemini. So again, I think this happened maybe in that Cancer reading, but I think in the Cancer reading, or not the Cancer reading, in the Charioteer reading, um, in that one, we didn't see Virgo. It was Gemini and Mercury. Now this time we saw Virgo and Mercury first, and now was the Gemini. I would. I'm gonna look before and after the Three of Cups here, because the Three of Cups is a card of accepting differences. It's a card of appreciating differences, and like they're different. Like his fires could burn down her trees, but they're not gonna do that. But if he fears burning her, or if she fears being burned by him, either one of them could back out of it. That would be that Saturn and Jupiter square. Like in the presence of that Saturn and Jupiter square, we could freak out and then miss an opportunity and then guilt, shame, blame ourselves for it. The 10 of Wands is the bottom of the deck, and the 10 and the 2 is behind that. 10, 2 is another 12, the Hanged Man of Wands, and then the Ace of Wands. So that's 13. The Death of Wands. This deck is so tick. So many cards. It would be hilarious. There's one more card face down. When the lovers flipped upright, it was laying face down on top of it. If that's the Three of Cups, then I'm about to look through this, but nothing. Statistically, there are a lot more cards in the deck than not. Ooh, the Hanged Man and the High Priestess are together. So we have the Six of Swords, which is somebody. Is it Mercury in Aquarius? I don't remember. Six of Swords, High Priestess, the Hangman, with that King of Wands again. So again, the Six of Swords with the High Priestess, it's like something that wants to be known, but is hard for human. It's like it's uh, almost unknowable for us, just because of the ways in which we operate. Okay, I found the Three of. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, we'll take that too. I found the Three of Cups. Who? Do 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 do. So the I don't know. The Three of Cups is in between Temperance and the Six of Cups, and then after the Six of Cups is the Star. This feels like something that someone's been wanting for a long time. But with the Six of Cups and the Star, this feels like a certain amount of healing needs to it it's almost like it has to happen, because if not we're going to be too triggered or too wounded to, and it's Jupiter and Pisces, we're going to be too triggered or too wounded to consolidate that square. So this is where Saturn and Pisces retrograding squares Jupiter and Gemini in order for us to Eight of Cups to our wish fulfillment, also wish fulfillment and healing. Um, in order for us to get there to the Nine of Cups, we have to overcome that square. But the Nine of Cups is Jupiter in Pisces. So that's why I'm like, we have to consolidate that. And without this healing, it feels like it would be really, 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 really difficult because of some way in which we're trauma triggered, wounded, some trauma that we've experienced. There's something that we can't get over. Maybe he has burned before, maybe she's been burned before. And so it's like the closer his flames get to her leaves, the more that fear or anxiety intensifies. And it feels like it could come to a point where it breaks and it falls apart if this hasn't happened. It feels like if it has happened, though, we'll be able to see something as what we've been wanting for so long. Temperance is literally the card of like fires and waters balancing. It's a card of harmonizing. Um, I feel like this doesn't really help much. I guess besides, if you've done the work, you'll be okay. If you've done the work, it'll be easier to be present in this and not self sabotage it, or to not be hyper vigilant. It's like it could be something that when it is communicated, it may come across as like too good to be true. And so either like we won't trust it and we'll say no, or we'll say yes. But in our own internal whatever, it's like we'll be looking for everything that validates something being too good to be true, almost to the point where like we're seeing red flags where there aren't any. But again, that's why without this healing or without overcoming whatever this is, it can be really, really difficult. This is almost testing our ability to receive too. I'm just switching the seven and the Eight of Pentacles. I had it 8-7, but seven was on top. So I just put it 7-8 because it's like the challenge is to receive. The first challenge, receive 21 gold pieces. Second challenge, receive 152 gold pieces. Third challenge, it's like receive, but it's not at this point, like it's not a challenge because the major arcanas don't have challenges. It's just the minors. So I don't know if at this point, and again, we have Temperance, the Star, the Lovers, also the Six of Cups is here. At this point, it's almost like either we will or we won't. But it is like this ramping up, and then it's like, oh my gosh. And the final card is the Ace of Coins. All of this, all of these Pinnacle energies Taurus, Virgo. What's the Ace of Coins? This challenge. I'm curious. Let me open this up. And then I'll get a final card and then we'll end this because folks are up and moving. There is a bag of holding in this room. It contains 4D10 silver, 4D100, 4 times a D100 silver, 2 times a D100 gold, and 1 times a D100 platinum. To exit this room, one creature must carry this bag with them. To exit the room, you have to carry a bag with a bunch of money in it. Platinum. So you go from, and again, like that was the energy before I revealed the card. I could tell it's like it's ramping up. Can you receive 21 gold pieces? Okay. Can you receive 152 gold pieces? Okay. Can you remain in the presence of the things that you have so deeply wanted and desired? Or are you still so hurt that you will knowingly or unknowingly create distance where there need not be? This Six of Cups is an energy that's been coming out for for a few months. I feel like since Aries season, Aries and Cancer square. They're both cardinal in modality. But it's been this thing of like, can we accept and receive our heart's truest desires, or do we like try to go back and reclaim something of old that has already passed? Can you be in the presence of something? Can you embrace it? And then, boom, silver, gold, and platinum. So, this is going to be a lot. I might have to type to remember. So is it 421? 4 silver, 4 silver, 2 gold, 1 platinum. Okay, so we're gonna start with the silver. Hey Google, roll a D10 twice.
You got 10 and 10. That makes 20.
10 and 10, that's 100. I was literally just thinking, I was like, those other rolls were so low. We got like 3 out of 100, 19 out of 100. Watch these be higher. 400 silver. We had the maximum amount of silver. I'm shook. Low key, high key, I'm shook. So that'd be like triple zeros. So we get 400 silver. Hey Google, roll a D10 twice.
You got 9 and 7.
9 and
16.
7? 97. These are so high. 97 times 2, 194. So we get 400 silver, 194 gold, and then how much platinum? Let's see. Roll a D10 twice.
You got 10 and 10. That makes 20.
And then 100 platinum. I'm so shook. But that was literally the energy. So I guess I shouldn't be as shook. My heart is like racing a little bit. I'm so shook right now. The maximum amount of silver, the maximum amount of platinum, and then 97 out of 100 times 2 gold. But again, like that's the energy. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. It's also interesting how many of these lately have been coming out with like Pluto retrograde didn't have any challenges, but if it did, the challenge would be to receive. And the Empress did come out in reverse with a message of like, it's about receiving something that we've created, manifested, rather than continuing to like be in this nurturing birthing process. I feel like it's this Eight of Pentacles. Remember how earlier I was talking about how there are some things that spirit excuse me, the intuition, the discernment may not necessarily communicate as what it brings to us, but it's like it's the work, it's the service, it's this. Because if it were communicated as this Ace of Pentacles, we would be chasing the Ace of Pentacles. We would be chasing all these coins, and it's not about the coins. I claim it. I'll take it. What's the opposite of Cancer? Capricorn. Hey. If this resonates for me, But again, the Ten of Wands is at the bottom of the deck. Because the Ten of Wands and the Two of Wands is down here, with the Ace of Wands, and Judgment is under the Ace of Wands. At least some of this, it may be beneficial to maybe do an exercise of, if you got this much money or that much money, what would you do with it? It feels like maybe some of this is to, like, for a cause. It could be something you're passionate about. Cause, charity. It feels like a part of this is to do something with it that is more widely beneficial. Anyway, wow, I'm shook. I never rolled that high yet. Do you see, like, the 3 from 3 and 19 to 100, 97, 100? Okay, anyway, let me end this. Folks are up and moving, and I don't want people to have to tiptoe because of me. So, what a gorgeous energy. Tell who what? I'm so shook. I'm so shook. I feel like, but that's also come out before, but it came out more in a collaborative sense. Oh, look, there's the Hermit. There's Virgo. Mercury is associated with commerce. Mercury's in Leo. With it being the Ace of Wands, like, there's also something that we're passionate about that we may be. It's like invest in something that we're passionate about, girl. Some of that may be for the greater good, or a greater good, more so than just our pockets. 9 of Swords. Bottom of the deck is the 6 of Swords. Under the 6 of Swords is the 2 of whatever. It's the High Priestess. This was an energy. Again, the truth of something wants to be known. But it feels like with the 9 of Swords, this is someone. Oof, why do we gotta end it like this? Claim it if it's yours. If it ain't yours, you could claim it, but if it's not yours, it won't be. May not be mine either. Who am I? But this 9 of Swords, it feels like it's not hearing, or it can't make sense out of what this High Priestess, what this energy, how this energy wants to be known. It can't make sense out of it. Or because the Hangman is still behind this High Priestess. The 7 of Coins is now behind the Hangman. And the glibness of the King of Wands is here. So that's why. It's because of this. It's because of the 9 of Swords that we're put in a position to want something. It makes it hard for us to listen intently rather than just listening for specific information. And there's something about the blessing of the glibness of this Archmage of Fire, because it worked in the magics. It was like anything that it says is validated by magic. So it's like, oh well, if I have the glibness of this King of Wands, then I can speak wealth. I can speak all the money that I want, and the magic of the universe will have to listen to me. But it only gives like 7 of coins. Now this just gave the least, and the 7 of coins gave us 21 gold out of the 400 silver, 194 gold, and 100 platinum. Like, that's crazy. It only, like, this is a limited return, and but again, it's because of the hangman, the high priestess, and the 6 of wands. With this energy, that's, it's just like it can't be used for certain things. Like, let's say that it is an energy of generosity, but it repays generosity of spirit, generosity of time, generosity of heart with physical coins. So there's so much that you can squeeze out of it without being generous in whatever way this requires generosity. You can squeeze 7 of Pentacles out of it, but without that generosity of heart or whatever, you're not going to get any more for it, because it's more like it exchanges it. For every good deed you do, you get a certain amount of whatever. But with this 9 of Swords energy, even if we understood that it repays kindness for kindness, or it repays in coins what we pay in kind, with this 9 of Swords, if we're after the money, those won't be good deeds for the sake of doing good deeds. It taints the goodness of the deed, because then we'd be doing it for the money. And again, it's like, that's the reason why when it first came out, whatever came out, it didn't come out in terms of you're going to get 400 silver, 194 gold, and 100 platinum, because we would fixate on that. It was communicated as like the passion, like the passion project that we invest in, like that's what it was communicated as. But we may think, oh well, like that may be something that I care about, that may be something that I'm passionate about, but it won't pay the bills. I can't live off of that. I can't sustain myself because of that. It doesn't have to specifically be money. Money is the medium of the metaphor. It could be about a partner. Like, no one's gonna love me if I'm like this or if I'm like that. So I'm gonna have to change myself and do all of this to find whatever. When, and I just feel like that's kind of great in general, because then they wouldn't be loving you. They would be loving this image that you created, this mask that you wear, this persona that you put on. Anyway, it's like Santa Claus. Be good for goodness sake. How do you say, like, you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, because Santa Claus is coming to town, and if you want presents, be good for goodness sake. You tell that to a child, they're going to be good because they want presents. They're not going to be good for goodness sake. Just like with this energy, it's like we would be doing acts of service, or we will be showing up in a way of service because service gets money, not because through any like truly altruistic whatever. We wouldn't be good for goodness sake. We'd be good to get presents and not cool, basically. And of course, this is an energy that I feel like the energy doesn't even necessarily have to discern the difference. I think it's the way that circumstances work that would be the discernment. Like, if it's not immediate enough, it would be hard for us. And maybe that's another thing with the Star and the 6 of Cups, with the Temperance. It would be hard for us to sustain something long enough to get a return on investment if we're not buying into it for the right reasons. It's like the turnover won't be quick enough if all you care about is money, or if all you care about is this, or if all you care about is that. It's not going to turn over quick enough, and so someone would like leave. And maybe it's an energy that's tired of, like, it's saddened by all of the people who tap into it until the well dries up and then they leave. And the energy is like, it's because it's like there are intricacies to this, like, but we're so, because life is life, and because we have bills and desires and responsibilities and needs and wants and Maslow's whoever's hierarchy of needs, we don't necessarily always feel that we have the time to be patient enough to receive, and so we cash out early. Sometimes it is about the money and only the money. I don't know. Anyway, judgment. So judgment is on the half of the deck with all of that at the bottom. The Six of Swords, the High Priestess, the Hanged Man, the Seven of Coins, the King of Wands. Judgment is there. And on the side of, because I have to split the deck in half. So on the side of the card that came out, which was the Nine of Swords, the King of Swords is at the bottom of the deck. The King of Swords is the Archmage of Air. That is the test of our integrity and our logic. With this Nine of Swords, it would be hard for us to be in integrity in that energy because, again, we wouldn't be being good for goodness sake. We'd be being good for the bag of holding that has all the coins in it. But either way, like, there would still be people who benefit. There are people who have the potential to benefit, I guess. So maybe that's why it's like, oh, I'll pay you like the 21 coins because he's going to benefit, she's going to benefit, this other person for where they are in their life and where they are in their journey. Even if your intentions aren't the best, they need somebody right now and you're there. So here's your 21 coins. But as for anything more, I don't know. Anyway, that was interesting. But this is like Saturn and Pisces is trining this new moon Cancer. And I don't know if it's an influence of Saturn. I don't know if it's an influence that's being communicated through Saturn. I don't know if it's just the energy. But Saturn and Pisces would also be the one that's like, no. Saturn and Pisces is the one that you can go to and you'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is my dream. Everything, like this is everything that I've ever wanted since then. And I'd like, you would give your whole life story to Saturn and it would be the most raw and vulnerable and emotional you've ever been. And Saturn will still say no if a no is warranted. Saturn's like, okay, but what about this? What about that? What about all these other things? It's so easy for us to excuse our own behaviors because we know our story, our histories, our past because of what we've been through. But like everyone has a story. Pretty much everyone's been through something. You know, I don't know. There is a little bit of a, as beautiful as it was, and maybe I should have just left it there, but also, again, that's why I say like it's the entirety of the context of it. And I hope, I feel more often than not, I do a decent job of describing the context. Like the context was someone who was being good for goodness sake, someone who is healed enough from their past that they can embrace fully their future, their glorious future, and not self sabotage it. So to claim the bag of holding with all those coins, but not be in any of those other positions, again, like it would be to cut out when it's 21 coins, which may also be that energy. Because I think the last time I was live, there was that Shark Tank energy. Yeah, it was the same with the Wish Granted. Like that would be someone who get like, because maybe it's a divine temptress. She tests our commitment. She tests our faith. And she'll like buy us out. Maybe we get bought out at 21. Maybe we hit after we go past 21, we get the 152 and we get bought out then. For those who go all the way, you know, it's 400 silver, 194 gold, and 100 platinum. But it feels like that's also more of a Capricornian energy because of the investment that it requires and how little it is up front. Like the cardinalness of Capricorn gives it more of like that startup energy. It feels like Virgo is the transition between a startup and the company, and Taurus is a company that's been running like a well-oiled machine for some time. But again, like it was the Fool, it's more the startup. It's something that becomes something. So anyway, I feel like I've said it in a million different ways. But I guess again, like to claim the bag of holding and not be aligned to all of the prerequisite is to set oneself up for disappointment at the very least. Not to say that you can't claim it, not to say that you can't speak it, but like the cards themselves, you can use whatever manifestation hack or trick or tool. You can try to Odin brute force your way into whatever, but it's an energy because of what the energy is. It can't operate in any other way. It will do its best to try to keep you satiated, but sometimes necessity and survival. It's not always greed. So I've been trying to not lean too heavy into the greed. Sometimes it is necessity and survival that pushes us to a point of we need. And again, when we need so much, sometimes we make the profitable choice and decision. Just like anybody, I guess, who has a business that gets bought out. Anyway, it's gorgeous. The energy is gorgeous. Um, Again, last time when we read Saturn retrograde, Saturn is it's that payout over an investment over time. It's the payout of the investment over time. The longer you invest, the more you get back. And I guess it's to get to the point where you don't have to pull your money out in order to be paid. It's like you can take whatever off the top while keeping your principal invested. You reap the interest or something like that, you know. Anyway, I hope you all have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that this resonates for you. I really hope it does, regardless of if it does or if it doesn't. That's not up to me, but I hope it does because this is gorgeous. Thank you, Christy, for stopping by. I'll catch y'all whenever I catch you. I don't know. Things are very in flux right now. Things are very fluid, I guess, as they always are. But bye.